No, he just left.
If I had a gavel, that'd be great.
I got paid pretty good.
I'll call to order the CJCC meeting of April 13th, 2023. The first order of business is the call of the roll.
Right, I will go around and introduce who's here, and then those that are coming in late, we'll just add them to the list. On Zoom, we've got exiting Chief Eric Atkinson from Menominee PD. We've got Sheriff Bigg on Zoom. We've got Colleen Etzbach, our citizen member, on Zoom. Jonathan Lundeen, public defender. We've got Chief Spetz from UW Stout. And then in the room, we've got Katie Shalley, clerk of courts. We've got Judge Jim Peterson. We've got Chief of Police for Menominee, newly Chief, Rick Hollister. Thanks for joining us. We have public, or
Paula Winter.
yeah, I was gonna say public health, but Director of Human Services, Paula Winter. We've got Child Support Director, Josie LaLiberty. We've got another citizen member, Jamie Dardane from the Bridge to Hope. We've got Chris Corpola, County Manager. And we've got our Vice Chair, sitting in as Chair, Judge Christina Meyer.
And I will tell you, that only gets harder as you get older. Pretty soon you just look at these people and go, I don't have any idea who you guys are.
I know who you are, but it's not coming to words, right?
Well, you said introduce yourself.
Right, exactly.
We know you have name tags.
And Sarah Benedict, the CJCC coordinator.
Thank you. And we also have members of the public joining us today.
Nice. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the meeting. The approval of the minutes from last meeting. Did everybody get to look at the meeting minutes?
I would make the motion to approve those minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right,
Any opposed? Public comment, or is there any public comment? From the public,
I'm
getting-
sure our public want to.
I'm going, shaking of heads. Consideration for actions to be taken by the council. Sarah.
All right, there's a couple of opportunities that have come forward. One is public health is looking at applying for the vending machines. So it's a Narcan vending machine. They have asked for a letter of support from the CJCC. They essentially were going to write it and just hope that we would sign it. We were absolutely in support of that. I was anyways, so I'm bringing it to the council for action. We don't have anybody from public health here to speak, but I think they were looking at putting that vending machine downstairs of the government center in public health. We did make some suggestions that the judicial center would be a good place, the jail would be a good place. So I'm not quite sure what their intent is. But hoping from this meeting that we could get an action to support that letter for public health or application.
Do we need a motion? We need a motion. And Paula, what's your motion?
That we support the application for the grant of public health vending machine for Narcan distribution.
With a letter of support?
Letters.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Eric does.
Is there any discussion?
Just a question, would there be a cost, I'm assuming, because it's a vending machine, so it'd be like just a available sale for people?
I think it's free.
The documentation says free.
So how would you keep people from like, just, taking all of it or taking a whole bunch?
It's for the taking.
No, it's just a question.
Because it is, it can't be misused, even if people use it inappropriately, like it's not for, if they use it and it's not intended for an overdose, it doesn't do anything. So it's essentially harmless unless you're in an opioid overdose situation, then it is life-saving.
Yeah, but I mean, I just was thinking from the standpoint of, people taking way more than they need, and then it goes to waste, or if you have some cost that at least, puts a little bit of regulation on it. But I had read somewhere that talking about having it approved for over-the-counter sales.
Yeah, so the FDA already approved it for over the counter, so you should start to see it just available at Walgreens, CVS, I mean, gas stations, anywhere that wants to carry it.
Is there some sort of identification associated with this, with the vending machine?
Well, there's certain vending machines, but what are you talking about in particular?
I think I read it today, that there was some sort of identification regarding that vending machine.
Like you had to put your name in or something?
Or some sort of, get an ID and put it in, and that ID wouldn't necessarily have your name on it, but you'd get an ID and put it in and then get the product out.
So you wouldn't be able to go and get
All of the
50
product.
or whatever there
Right.
is.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how the system works, but the idea is to make it widely available. And just like we have defibrillators and fire extinguishers in places, to actually have opioid overdose reversal medications on hand.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I just have a comment. Do we suppose putting it someplace other than the sheriff's department lobby would be a smart thing? Like, would people be less inclined to come and use it if they think so, they're gonna get in trouble?
Right, right.
Not for getting but like get on somebody's list to be watched or whatever.
Right. I think it's really making it available and known, so people can access it freely without fear. So maybe not having it in the sheriff's office lobby would be preferred.
I mean, it's good because I think that maybe that's open 24 hours a day, at least that area, right? So it's accessible all the time, but I'm just thinking about the people who might be using it.
I'm just speculating, but another issue is that, or another consideration is that public health also does the needle exchange. So people that might be more inclined to need to carry Narcan or be with someone who carries Narcan. It's kind of a one-stop shop then, but. Be my
Or
second.
more limited.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the motion was that we would support it with a letter of support. Is there any more discussion on this issue?
I would just say on the city standpoint, there may be a couple locations for some of the city-owned municipal buildings where if public health did receive the vending machines, that we might be interested in having them placed. We're in strong support of it.
And so are we ready for a vote? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right,
Any opposed? So that motion passes. Sarah, you have the next one as well, the opioid abatement efforts.
So the state is beginning to dole out their opioid settlement dollars. So this is an opportunity strictly for law enforcement agencies. It can be university, it can be city, it can be county. And it's really focused on opioid abatement. It could be medication-assisted treatment, education, awareness, training, community drug disposal programs, treatment for people incarcerated with opioid use disorders, and then pre-arrest or pre-arrangement deflection programs for people with opioid use disorders. So these is probably the first of many grant opportunities that are going to be coming from the state. We also have county opioid dollars. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. But this is just an opportunity for law enforcement, our partners, if they're interested in securing some more funding for any of those efforts. We do have treatments in jail with our current grant that we have through the state. So I think we've got that covered. What this opportunity does allow for is peer supports to assist with that. But we would have to really expand the types of medication-assisted treatment that we offer. Currently, it's just Vivitrol. We just received a second grant from the state to purchase Vivitrol, $180,000. So I think we've got ample supply of Vivitrol for the jail. We have funding for the substance abuse counselor. So this could be used to expand different components there. We already participate in the drug disposals, but there's this opportunity for some more funding there. And then just doing some of the education and awareness training. As far as the pre-arrest, pre-arrangement, this is really focused on opioid use disorders. Currently with the city's CASAP grant and our county's CASAP grant, we have funding for the behavioral health officers that are leading up the effort for that pre-arrest deflection. So I will defer to our law enforcement leaders to get their input. You know, we've got plenty of time for this. It's not due until April or May 22nd. But we currently have some funds and some programs that we're trying to get up and running. Just wondering the appetite for this.
Yeah, I'd personally have to look at what's allowable by the grant. I'm guessing enforcement isn't one of them, so we'd have to look at some other programs that aren't funded otherwise through other grants.
I'm going to defer that to Chief Hollister because he'll be managing all the department and its logistics.
I just didn't have some time to digest this a little bit, look over it before our next meeting or get back to you on this, because I don't think it's fair just to put something out there unless I know it.
Absolutely. And we will have another meeting May 1st, I think it is, or the first Wednesday of May, probably May 3rd. So that would give time to review it and we can bring it back to the operations committee for action.
And would you have to write the grant then at that point or apply for it? Or?
Yeah, it would be due by the 22nd of May, which, you know, we could get her done.
And would you guys write that? Is that
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
In cooperation
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
police department, yes.
always looking for assistance?
Right, and it does help to collaborate and it does help to join forces and we've been pretty successful at it so far, by kind of broadening out what we're looking at, so.
Well, and Sarah has all of the background stuff from all the bazillions of other grants, so it's sort of easy to drop from one to the next.
Good deal.
So we don't need any action on that right this second, and we're gonna take it up at the May 3rd meeting. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Opioid settlement update.
So I was hoping between Paula and Chris that we could get just a update for the rest of the CJCC, kind of as far as where we stand with the opioid settlement. There was some action by the county board, so it's just to really update the rest of the crew here.
Do you want to do that first and I'll talk about that?
Sure. So the county board accepted the next, perhaps last round of settlement agreements with the pharmacies. So there were manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies that all ended up paying. And so that money, I imagine we'll start to see shortly. The only other thing that I would say about that opioid money is we're gonna, depending on what your plan is for it, well, right now it's actually just, you can sit right where it is. But it's earning interest. So it's earning about 4.5, 5, almost 5% interest. And there's a little over about $210,000 currently. So again, it's not an enormous amount of money, but it's making money at this point.
And as far as the work group that we have together to look at how maybe we could spend the funding, we have gotten together multiple times and really had this laundry list of all the great ideas that we could put together and then try to look at, you know, whittling away at that. What do we get with 210,000, and then as the additional money comes in, what's a priority now? What might be a medium priority, coming up in the near future, and then a long-term priority. And so that's what we did, is kind of shaved them down and looked at those in that manner of speaking. And so that's all pulled together. I just need to pull the team back together again to get the final blessing on that, of this is the way, the direction we want to go, because there were some varied opinions about, do we just keep it, do we spend it, there's a lot of different things there. So one last meeting, I think, should do it, and then we can put a document together for you, Chris.
And I would just add that can jumpstart some of these, the thinking and the planning for these other state opportunities that are coming.
Our next thing is the year-end review, 2022. CJC grants and accomplishments.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight, we did include the packet or the annual report for 2022 in the packet. Some of you were there at the county board meeting back in March, where we were able to present to the county board all the good things that we did last year. And we really were able to seize on a couple of different grants that we didn't even quite know that were out there. Again, just that collaboration, being able to quickly respond. We were also able to bring in some good quality training and to use some of the grant funds to have kind of a multi disciplinary team attend some of the national training as well, which is fantastic. And then Chris kind of reminded me that we are at 15 years for the CJCC in May, so we've got a lot of accomplishments through the years. So just if you have a little time to take a look at that annual report, but those are kind of ways that we can chronicle all the things that we do year after year and keep building and accomplishing more. Unless there's questions.
I'd just like to comment, I thought the county board report was very well done. I was very pleased with the board members' knowledge of CJCC and the programs within it, and I think it really helped to have the two of you also there to present, and did a great job with that. So I want to thank you for presenting.
Well, and thank you.
Job.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for reminding me. That's when we kicked off the road show for treatment court and family treatment court. But I also heard a lot of good feedback from different people, and they really appreciated hearing from both of you judges. So even though we only have 5 minutes, it took 10. It's nice to. Well, there was a lot of questions, which is great.
Questions are not the presenter's problem.
Right. No, I thought it was great, those questions, because that meant they were engaged and they had knowledge of it, so I thought that was great, very well done.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Staff report.
So written staff report was included in the packet. Again, there's a lot of different things that are ongoing, so we don't want to take all our time here kind of verbalizing that. So hopefully you have a chance to read it. Be happy to address any questions. I think one of the big highlights is, as I mentioned, we received another grant for $180,000 for medication in the jail. So that's huge. We've already spent almost $50,000 on medication. So it's the funds are needed, and there's people that need that medication. So, but any questions from the written report?
Can you pre-buy it?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we're
So if
gonna.
you're getting sort of to the end of the grant period and you have money left, you could buy
Yes.
a pile of Vivitrol.
Yes.
Tuck it away. I know it has to stay refrigerated, I believe.
Yep. We've already got a big full-size refrigerator for the jail medical staff, so they're pretty pleased with that. So now we can fill it.
Nice.
Are there any updates from anybody else? Chief Atkinson, you have any updates?
I have a new job. I'll be officially assuming the role of city administrator next Monday. Of course, you've already met Chief Hollister. He is my more than capable replacement. I know he will serve the city well as the lead law enforcement officer in the city, and he's just had an outstanding career over the years. confident he'll do an amazing job and be a great partner to the CJCC. And for me personally, I just want to thank all of you for all the hard work that you do to improve the criminal justice system. And it has been a lot of fun to work with all of you. And I hope to stay in touch with all of you too, to continue to help your mission and improve criminal justice outcomes for everybody who is impacted by our system. So thank you for the wonderful partnership and all the support over the years. It's been an amazing ride and truly an honor. So thank you.
Are there any other updates? Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you.
We did have a resignation of the family treatment coordinator position, and we have that posted to fill, so just want you to be aware of that.
And one of the social workers is filling in.
Correct. One of the social workers is work closely with that program is currently filling in.
And family treatment court and the drug treatment court are both going to the Wisconsin Association of Treatment Court Professionals, not next week, but the week after, for a seminar.
That's always a good conference.
It is.
And pretty much both teams are going, so it should be good.
Any other updates? Our next thing is the education component. We're back to Sarah again.
Okay, well, I'm working hard on this, so I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Let's see, all the data people unite here.
It was very interesting.
So in kind of late addendum, but the dashboard came out. So this is our annual kind of covering of so our smash board is kind of evolved over the years, but we've been doing it annually, I think since 2016, and really looking at a lot of different perspectives of our system. And this is a way to relay some information. So you'll find jail information, proxy, law enforcement proxy, the different program utilization. Towards the back, you'll see a little bit of description so you understand what the different programs are. And then on the last page is actually an acronym abbreviation list because there's a lot of acronyms. So essentially I took this information and put it into PowerPoint so we can just kind of walk through it. Certainly encourage you to dig into the data and connect back with me if you've got any questions or see anything that needs to be updated. But we'll just get started. So this is a old slide that our former Sheriff Dennis Smith had put together years ago, and just kind of keep it going. This just shows what our population is in the county. And in the last 30 years, it's actually increased about 36% in population. Looking at that similar kind of time frame when we're looking at the Dunn County jail population, you can clearly see where COVID struck in 2020. Numbers were going down, but prior to that, our jail population was steadily increasing until about 2018. And there was maybe some of our diversion programs or some of our other alternatives started to see that plateau or even trend down. Being that we're in 2022, we had a full year back in the office, but we didn't necessarily rebound on the numbers. So we're still lagging behind what we saw before, and time will tell kind of where those things pan out, if we start to trend back up or if some of the changes that we made are able to really continue. Looking at the jail bookings over time, so this one is just a trend chart since 2010, and you can see that there was a slight decrease in the jail bookings, but again 2020 that significant drop rebounded a little bit, but we're still not back up to that pre-COVID on the jail bookings. Here we've got just a little deeper look at the jail. This shows us the average daily population. So again, the trend is trending down. That's good when when you think about our county population trending up, our jail population is trending down. That's good. Huber kind of been up and down, but is trending down. And then the electronic monitoring or the home monitoring has been steady. Here we've got, again, just a snapshot of the jail population, men and women. So here to note, we're just continuing to see the trend where we have more women entering the criminal justice system or jail in particular. And the number of men are trending down. This is a national trend, so we're kind of seeing that overall. So I'd say like in the last 5 years, we went from 20% female to 25% female. Looking at the diversity of those that are in the jail, we're continuing to see some disparities. This chart is a little misleading. The baseline is 75%, so the blue essentially would be all the way down if it was a full chart. But this shows you the percent of African Americans, Asians, and Native Americans. And when we compare it to the population of the census, there is some disparities, especially when we're looking at Black individuals. It was 9% of our jail population last year. They're only 1% of the county's population. For Asians, they were 2% of our jail population. They're 3% of our county's population. And for Native Americans, it was 1% for both. So in jail and in the community. So really, we're just seeing the disparities with African Americans. Looking at the snapshot of jail. So this is really one point in time, the last day of each month, gives us a composition of who's in jail. It's a consistent measure over time, but it does show that we are, we're now kind of switching. We have more people that we're holding pretrial that are serving sentences, and the probation holds have relatively held steady. So it'll be interesting with the new the constitutional amendment on bail, if we start to see that number increase, because we're seeing it increase prior to those changes. Looking at law enforcement proxies. So pleased to say the number of proxies, this is law enforcement's quick screener where they can screen risk and also use the information to inform their decision whether they want to do a citation, they want to do an arrest, they want to do a detainment. So the number of proxies went up in 2022. We had over 800 proxies. So one by one, I'm calculating proxies and risk, and it's a lot of data. But to really kind of synthesize it here, we essentially kind of see some of the same trends. What is, I think, notable in 2022, the number of low risk individuals was about 60%. On our proxy. The number for medium risk kind of trended down, and the number for high risk has really stayed the same at about 9%. So again, this is different than a full-on assessment that we do for risk and needs. It's just kind of a screener, a tool. But we tend to see kind of a reflection of law enforcement contacts. They're low risk individuals, and that we see in 2022 is 34% had alcohol or other drug issues going on. Of those AODA category, 34% were for meth, possession of methamphetamine, and then another 34% were for operating while intoxicated. So again, year after year, those continue to be the drivers that we're seeing out there as far as the greatest proportion of the contacts. Looking at just a deeper look at for those that are booked or actually arrested and brought into jail and booked and held, We have a criminal justice assessor that goes in and offers some screening. This reflects our drug and alcohol screen, so it's a voluntary option that people participate in. And again, we typically are seeing the same trends over and over. With meth, it's, so in 2022, we had 239 inmates that agreed to participate in this. So this is pretrial folks. We see year after year, about 30% are saying that methamphetamine is their most problematic drug. For alcohol, you can see it's trending up, which is interesting. Heroin, opioids, pretty static. THC is trending down and other drugs are trending down. So this really just reflects the most problematic drug. So we know that a lot of our drug users in the community are polydrug users, meaning they're going to use what is available, whatever's here. So we do see some switching of drugs kind of based on the supply that's in the community. So even though we know that there's issues with overdose, we know that there's opioid issues, we're not really seeing that indicated as a primary problem for those that are participating in the screening. But methamphetamine, clearly the winner there. Another screener that the assessor does is to look for mental health concerns. So we use the GAIN short screener. And this chart reflects the percent of people that would have high severity, or they would probably have a mental health diagnosis. They have enough symptomology that would warrant a diagnosis. So in the last couple of years, we went from about half of our jail population, or those that are participating, of having this to 65%. So I think for most of us that kind of go about our work on a daily basis, we are seeing more mental health symptomology and more just struggles in general. And I think it kind of reflects the current age that we're living in. For programs, for the pre-charge diversion, so this is the first time offender program that the DA's office operates. This started back in 2016. We are, this 2022 was a little bit of an anomaly where, people struggle, but typically we do see a good proportion complete the program. This is really an educational video with, promise not to get in trouble again, and then the charges just kind of go away. But overall, about 71% of the people since the program started have actually successfully completed. And we do the recidivism studies at the end of the year, and those usually reflect well that this really is that low-risk population. They're scared straight after having some contact with us, and then they typically don't come back into the criminal justice system. Here's the treatment opportunity program. So this is our TAD-funded program. Here we kind of see a little bit of a mixture. Just this year, we have a full-time coordinator for a treatment opportunity program. Prior to that, it was treatment court and treatment opportunity, doing them both. So we did separate it out. So the numbers have been pretty steady overall. About 61% of the people successfully complete this program. About 39% don't. So this is case management, it's treatment, it's supportive services and drug testing, and then that information is relayed back to the DA's office, and if people complete it, their charges are dismissed or reduced, and if they don't complete it, then they already have put in a plea, and then their court their case kind of resumes back into that traditional case processing. For treatment court, so this is really the high risk, high need, very complex needs that people have. This started back in 2008, and we've had a total of 124 participants. 6% have had some sort of general discharge, either they moved to another county, they have passed away, pretty significant reason they can't participate here in the community. But we see about a 50-50. 50% are terminated and 50% complete the program. It is a lot easier, quicker route to be terminated from all of these treatment programs than it is to successfully complete. We use termination as, really a last resort, but it happens if there's new crime activity, if there's non-compliance, a host of reasons that terminations can result. But overall, we've been seeing pretty steady stats as far as that success rate there. Moving to our family treatment court, again, this is some of the higher risk, higher need. This is our parents that have children in need of protection, that have cases started with the Department of Human Services with some court intervention. So here we're really trying to wrap around services to these families, get them intensive case management, drug testing, get them the treatment they need. And then the really ensure that the kids have the support and services that they need. Newer programs, so we've only had 21 complete since 2019. Here, the general discharge rate's much higher, we're at 29%. If there isn't an underlying child protective case or that closes for some reason, that can be the trigger to end participation in family treatment court. Also, or if they're moving out of county and can't participate, that can be part of that general discharge. But overall, for those that have been successful, it's about 60% that we're seeing that are getting through the program. And again, this is another one of those where it's quicker to fail out or be terminated than it is to get through the 15 to 24 month program. The newest program that we've got is the jail MAT, so that's medication assisted treatment in jail. So that really started in October when we were able to get the substance use counselor going. But in that short amount of time, there was 29 people that were assessed for MAT, 14 were enrolled. So assessed meaning that there was either opioid or alcohol use. But through the education and orientation, not everybody is interested in participating in the MAT program. So 14 of the 29 did participate. And really there's just two forms of MAT. It's for alcohol or opioid use disorder. Where we see methamphetamine as our major challenge, there's nothing approved for methamphetamine. So this really is specific to the opioid users and then the alcohol use disorders. But interesting, we've got more individuals participating that have that alcohol use. And then the last slide here, before any questions, is court appearance rates. So I had to double check these numbers because it was interesting. So again, snapshot over time, we're looking from 2017 to 22. We're seeing that the number of cases, criminal cases, this is really focused on criminal cases, scheduled has increased quite a bit over time. We do have 3 judges now and 2 different treatment courts and all sorts of things going on. The failure to appear rate has been pretty steady. We see about 14% overall of individuals or cases failure to appear rate, and that's 86% would be the appearance rate. The kind of the gulf between that top of the blue line, that's total cases. So if you take the gray line and add it to the orange line, it still doesn't get up to that full blue. And that reflects the cases that were either, or the hearings that were canceled or rescheduled. So that's why those numbers are a little different. And then that's it. So any questions that you might have? And I'd be happy to send this out to the team or to the council so you can look at it more and certainly circle back if you have questions.
Yeah, I have a question. And I have a lot of questions, but I'm only going to ask one or two. So, and then just for Katie, and maybe you can help me with this. But it seems to me that when you see the number of court hearings scheduled here, how we've increased so much, that isn't really as a function of an increase of new cases as it is sort of us, because of the pandemic, ending up with more cases staying pending longer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna pull up my cheat sheet on the number of cases, because we have had more of an increase of criminal filings from 2021 to 2022. So I would say there's a little bit of an increase, but I think it just, we're having more hearings for cases to get concluded, so a little bit of both.
Yeah, that was my perception. I just wondered if that, it seems like it's borne out with the statistics because we keep track of our clearance rates, and it seems that my percentage has gone down from certainly what it was pre-pandemic, but once you get more cases, if they don't get resolved on the other end, it's just sort of like the drain back is kind of my perception. And things are heading in the right direction. I think we're starting to see more things get resolved. And but it creates problems all its own, because when you're kind of stuck with this, you get gummed up because of all these cases. And so hopefully we'll see that reflected in statistics going forward, maybe fewer cases scheduled.
Agreed, and I think we're also seeing that in the number of people that are referred to like treatment court and treatment opportunity that are just waiting for their cases to get resolved. Those numbers are kind of ballooning as well, and I think it's that, again, that backlog of those cases, that they're from COVID.
Yeah, just for informational purposes, and Jonathan, I know you're listening, and Judge Meyer, pipe in, you'd like also, but when we look at what has been going on, I mean, the pandemic was part of it, but we're also seeing, across the state and in northern Wisconsin, kind of a shortage of attorneys. It's more difficult to get, appointments, and that causes some delay. We've had a number of attorneys that took appointments that have left this area or the practice, and so that's a problem district-wide for us. Just for informational purposes, our county is part of the 10th Judicial District, which is basically like the northwest corner of the state. We're at the bottom of it, Eau Claire, Dunn, St. Croix, and then basically everything north. But that's district-wide, those sorts of problems. And I'm just throwing it out there so you understand that's sort of a trending problem. And I don't know if there's going to be any relief, or if it's going to get worse.
Right.
You agree, John? You hear me? Maybe.
I think he split already.
I don't see him on any longer, Judge.
There was a 12% increase of criminal case filings from 2021 to 2022. So CMCT, so 12% is, enough, yeah.
When you start adding all those little things together, it starts being a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Katie, do you have an analysis of that in terms of the types of filings?
I do, yeah, yep. I could send it out to everybody. I have it broken down every year by all the case types that come through the circuit court.
Yeah, and we've actually presented that in past meetings, agency data, because it really shows, the utilization of the sheriff's department and the court, so we can bring that for our next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd just be helpful to know, like, if I'm just making this up, if 10% of that 12% are burglaries, then that would be kind of an interesting piece of data. If they're sort of split all across then you can't really.
We had a large increase of criminal misdemeanor cases filed from 2021 to 2022. That was 22% increase. There was only 64 more felonies filed, and then 22 more criminal traffic cases than 2021. So misdemeanors took more of an increase.
It did seem like there was a trend in more thefts too, and I don't know if that's a reflection of the economy and, or substance use issues or mental health or what, but it does seem to be more of that.
Question. Would it be the CJCC's role to look at the disparities with race, and if so, have we ever done that here or not?
Yeah, we've definitely kept our eye on it. We've explored maybe some of the factors in the past. Our data work group that Katie has led up. and really try to identify, you know, are kind of, we looked at, are these individuals that are passing through on the interstate? Are there individuals that are here for stout? Really, what's going on? And we found that there are people that live in our community, they're here. So there is it could be several of those repeatedly cycling through. But we didn't really have clear takeaways. And we certainly don't want to be pointing fingers or any of that, because it's just really one measure. We have looked at what is even a better measure, you know, because they say sometimes community population is fine, and then sometimes they're like, well, no, because not everybody in your community is going to be offending, you know. So I think Sheriff, I know you were part of some of these conversations in the past. Anything that you'd want to add on that?
I couldn't hear Paula's question. Yeah, about,
Sorry, I was wondering if it was within the CJCC scope to look at the disparities between race and if so, what we've done in that in the past. And so then Sarah was explaining kind of the history of what you've done with data collection and looking at that issue.
right. Well, and you can play the numbers any way you want for the most part, but we don't decide who commits crimes. It's kind of like, well, only 25% of my jail population is females. That's trending up, but 51% of the Dunn County population is females, but only 25% of my jail population is females. So the trend is males, and historically males commit more crimes than females do. So we can choose, you know, who gets arrested for crimes. We just investigate them and arrest who we can.
Yeah, and my question wasn't to point fingers, because I didn't know what had
No.
been done to look at that or address, yeah.
You might be too far away from the mic for him to be able to hear you very well.
I wasn't pointing fingers, Kevin, I was just asking like what's been done in the past.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, there's, frankly, I don't know why that's, you know, why that's a statistic, other than it's a popular thing to do right now. But we don't control our jail population, you know, by race or sex or religion or anything else. We're an equal opportunity enforcement agency, and so is Menominee Police Department, so is the State Patrol and everybody else. So I'm not sure why that's even a particular studied number, but it is, and I don't think it has a lot of credence, because if you, you know, if you want to take my jail population, like my example of males and females, we're statistically not arresting enough females, but that isn't a real popular conversation with most people either. So.
Does anybody else have any other comments on the numbers? Questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. I don't know if there's any way to determine this, but you know, we see that our jail population has, you know, remained relatively flat, maybe dipped down a little bit. Is there any way to compare that to the actual crime that's occurring? You know, sometimes it's referred to as the dark side of the crime statistic. You know, like, you know, you don't. There's proactive enforcement, which may generate arrest for possession and those sorts of things. But sometimes there's, you know, like property crime statistics that are reported to law enforcement. Sometimes they're a decent benchmark. You know, the FBI keeps their statistics. Is there any way to look at our numbers and the crime in our community as opposed to comparing it to the jail? And the reason I ask that is there less jail because there's less crime, or is there less jail because jail is used less, maybe in some dispositions? I'm just throwing that out there as just something to think about for statistics. I mean,
Yeah, because I think it gets back to the agency reports that help us get it better. And again, just more different perspectives of looking at our crime problems. But yeah, there's much more than jail. So even looking at calls for service and the types of calls for service from the city and the sheriff's department can give us a sense of that. Because right, sometimes crimes are not solved, or there isn't a suspect that is arrested and brought in. That doesn't mean that the crime didn't occur. So I think there's other ways we can also kind of look at this, and we can definitely do that as well.
Yeah, and I think you have to factor in your clearance rates on your burglaries and thefts and things. But based off of our numbers, 2022, we had an increase of around 1,000 incidents, but our burglaries and drug cases were down, so in fact, April 19th, I'll be delivering my annual report to the county board, where some of those 5-year trends, you'll see the jail population in 2022 and DOC and CDC kind of changed some regulations. You'll see in, I think, middle of March last year, the jail population started to get back to our total bookings were up to 120 a month or something when they were down originally through COVID. So there was a lot of catch and release, I think, through COVID, and which still end up in your courtroom or, at least in the DA's office on arrests. But so, you almost have to take out the COVID years because they really skew the numbers.
Do you look at, when you're looking at the jail stats, where you might have a repeat offender, let's say somebody's in a addiction or in the decline, or they need more substance, more thefts than earlier depending on one person. So within a week and a half time, you have a person arrested for a couple of domestic, a theft, and they're disorderly. They're all brought in, so it's the same person, but does that skew the count? That's from
No.
just one person does for one.
No, it'd be one booking is how the jail measures that, and they do. It's on their smash board. They go back to 1999. So and there's recidivism rates on here. So if you've ever been booked in the jail since 1999, you're gonna be marked as that you've been there before. So we kind of get to see who's coming in and out a little bit. But right, there's kind of frequent utilizers of the system, so to speak. So that one individual can go right in and out, in and out, in and out. But they would each be counted as one booking.
Each time?
Yeah.
So that could skew your numbers depending on where the person's at.
Yeah, these are just bookings, not
Yeah.
individuals. Well, individual bookings, but it could be the same individual. And about half of them are the same individuals over and over again.
Rick, I think recidivism rate out of our jail stats last year was between 40 and 50%, right around 42%, I think, were repeat offenders.
Yep, 49%. So that's the lowest we've seen in a long time. New customers, I guess.
Is there any other questions? I show our next meeting is our operations committee meeting, which is Wednesday, May 3rd at 11 a.m. And then our quarterly meeting, which is July 13th at 4 p.m. And then, unless somebody has something else, then we can adjourn. And look at that, we're 3 minutes early.
Thank you, everybody. I'll send out the PowerPoint following the meeting here.
Thank you.
Yeah.